Everyone saw a useless nurse with a bad leg. Someone to push aside when real emergencies happened. But when helicopters filled the sky and armed soldiers burst through the doors demanding a war hero by her secret code name, the entire hospital realized their biggest mistake. The janitor was a legend in disguise. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The emergency room floor at Seattle General Hospital was always the same shade of gray. Nurse Emma Carson knew every crack in that floor because she spent most of her time staring down at it, trying to stay out of everyone's way. Emma was 42 years old with a heavy limp in her right leg. The younger doctors and nurses called her the slow one behind her back. She couldn't run when emergency codes were called. She couldn't move fast when patients came crashing through the doors. So they gave her the quiet jobs. Changing sheets, updating charts. Watching over the drunk people who came in on Friday nights. Nobody asked why she limped. Nobody cared enough to wonder. "Move it, Carson." Dr. Blake Matthews shouted as he pushed past her in the hallway. "You're blocking traffic again." Dr. Matthews was the hospital's star surgeon. Young, handsome, and brilliant. He was also the meanest person Emma had ever worked with. He treated her like she was invisible, or worse, like she was in his way. Emma grabbed the wall to steady herself. Her right leg throbbed with that familiar ache. The ache that never really went away. "Sorry, doctor," she said quietly. "Don't be sorry. Just move faster." Dr. Matthews didn't even look back at her. "We have a major car accident coming in. If you can't keep up, maybe you should work somewhere else. Somewhere that doesn't require walking." A few of the young nurses giggled. They thought Dr. Matthews was amazing. To them, Emma was just part of the furniture. Old furniture that should have been replaced years ago. Emma went back to organizing her supply cart. She didn't let the insults hurt her. She had been insulted by scarier people than Dr. Matthews. She had been screamed at by drill sergeants in the rain. She had been cursed at by wounded soldiers in the desert. But she kept all of that to herself. Here, she was just Emma. Not Lieutenant Commander Carson. Not Flight Nurse Carson. And definitely not the call sign she had buried 7 years ago. "Hey, Emma," whispered Lisa, a kind young nurse who always tried to help. "Don't listen to him. He's just stressed. They said some important person is coming in with the accident victims." "It's okay, Lisa," Emma said softly. But it wasn't really okay. Emma saw things the other nurses missed. While they saw chaos and panic, Emma saw patterns. She noticed that the patient in bed 3 was going into shock before the machines even beeped. She saw that the new doctor in bed 5 was putting in the breathing tube wrong. But she stayed quiet. She had learned that in the civilian world, a limping nurse wasn't supposed to give medical advice. She was supposed to stay quiet and fetch blankets. The automatic doors burst open. Paramedics rushed in with a teenager on a stretcher, covered in blood. 17-year-old male. Car crash. Chest trauma, the paramedic yelled. Dr. Matthews was there instantly, shouting orders. "Get him to Bay 1. I want X-rays now. Carson, stay out of the way. We need room to work." Emma stepped back against the wall. She watched Dr. Matthews work. He was good with his hands, she had to admit. But he was missing something. From where she stood, Emma could see the boy's neck veins bulging. His chest wasn't moving right. His blood pressure was dropping, but his heart rate wasn't doing what it should. Cardiac tamponade, Emma thought. Or maybe a collapsed lung on the right side. She took a small step forward. "Doctor," she said, keeping her voice calm. "You should check his right lung sounds. His trachea is shifting." Dr. Matthews spun around, his face red with anger. "Excuse me. Did I ask you for advice? I'm the doctor here, Carson. I know what a collapsed lung looks like, and this isn't it. Go get me blood from storage and be quiet. Emma closed her mouth. She saw the young intern look at her with pity. They all thought she was trying to play doctor. She turned and limped toward the blood bank, her fists clenched. The pain in her leg flared up, reminding her of the night she got that injury. The night she hung upside down in a burning helicopter, keeping a Marine alive with one hand while she tied a tourniquet on her own shattered leg with the other. She got the blood bags, checking the labels 3 times. Old habits never died. When she came back to the trauma room, everything had gotten worse. The boy was crashing. Blood pressure is 60/40, the intern shouted. We're losing him. Push epinephrine. Dr. Matthews roared. Where's that blood? Carson, hurry up. Emma handed him the blood. Her eyes locked on the patient's chest again. It was worse now. If Dr. Matthews didn't fix the collapsed lung in the next minute, the boy would die. He needs a needle decompression, Emma said louder this time. Right side of his chest, now. The room went silent for just a second. Dr. Matthews threw his stethoscope down with a loud clatter. He walked right up to Emma, getting in her face. Get out, he hissed. Get out of my trauma room. You're done for the day. Get out before I call security to drag you out. Emma looked him in the eye. For just a moment, the quiet nurse disappeared. Something cold and dangerous flashed in her eyes. But then she blinked and it was gone. Yes, doctor, she said. She turned and limped away. The sound of her uneven footsteps echoed under the beeping alarms. She walked to the break room, her heart pounding. Not with fear, but with frustration. She knew that boy was going to die, and she knew Dr. Matthews wouldn't figure it out until it was too late. She was pouring herself a cup of old coffee when the ground shook. It wasn't an earthquake. It was a vibration that rattled the cups on the shelf. A deep thumping sound that she felt in her bones before she heard it with her ears. Thwop, 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 thwop. Emma froze. She knew that sound. Every part of her body knew that sound. It was the sound of salvation and destruction all at once. Helicopter rotors, heavy lift, military. She moved to the window of the break room that looked over the parking lot. Her eyes went wide. Coming from the south, flying low and fast over the city, were 4 black shapes. Not the red and white medical helicopters. These were matte black. Military birds. The hospital speaker system crackled to life. The receptionist's voice was shaking. Security to the main entrance. We have unauthorized aircraft landing in the parking lot. Repeat, unauthorized landing. In the ER, everyone ran to the windows. Patients and nurses crowded the glass. Is it a terrorist attack? Someone screamed. No. Dr. Matthews shouted, trying to control his floor. It's probably just a drill gone wrong. Ignore it. Focus on the patients. But it was impossible to ignore. The sound was deafening now. The first helicopter, a massive Black Hawk with no markings except a gray serial number, came down hard over the parked cars. The wind from the rotors was so strong it pushed a small car sideways. Emma watched from the break room, her coffee forgotten. She pressed her hand against the glass. What are they doing here? She thought. This isn't a normal landing zone. They're coming in like it's a war zone. She watched as the lead helicopter touched down. Before the rotors even slowed, the side doors flew open. Men poured out. Emma counted them instantly. 12 men, full combat gear, plate carriers, M4 rifles, helmets with communication equipment. This wasn't a training exercise. This was a military strike team. She looked closer at the patches on their shoulders. Dark gray on black. But she recognized the symbol. A knife through a globe. Force Recon. Elite Marines. "Oh my God," Emma whispered. The second and third helicopters landed around the first one, blocking off the ambulance entrance. The fourth one stayed in the air, hovering overhead. A sniper leaned out of the open door, watching everything. The doors to the ER burst open. It wasn't patients coming in. It was Frank, the elderly security guard, running backward with his hands up. "I couldn't stop them," Frank yelled. "They have guns." Behind him, the double doors were kicked open so hard one of them broke off the hinges. 3 Marines entered first, their rifles ready. They didn't point the guns at people, but their presence was terrifying. They moved like water, flowing around hospital beds, freezing everyone in place. "Everybody stay exactly where you are," the lead Marine shouted. His voice came through a speaker on his vest, making it loud and commanding. "Hands where we can see them. No sudden movements." Dr. Matthews stepped out of the trauma room, his gloves covered in the teenager's blood. His usual confidence was gone now. He looked scared. "Who do you think you are?" Dr. Matthews demanded, walking toward the armed men. "This is a hospital. You can't just come in here with weapons. I have a patient dying in there." The lead Marine didn't even blink. He was huge, easily 6'4", with a scar through his eyebrow. He simply stepped forward and pushed Dr. Matthews back with one hand. It wasn't violent. It was just a dismissal. Like moving a chair out of the way. Dr. Matthews stumbled back 5 feet, gasping. "I am Captain Marcus Stone, United States Marine Corps," the giant man announced. "And I'm not here for your patient, doctor. I'm here for my soldier." "Your soldier?" Dr. Matthews stuttered, his face turning red. "We don't have any military patients here today. You have the wrong hospital." Captain Stone ignored him. He reached into his vest and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He looked around the room, his eyes scanning every face. "I'm looking for a former service member," Captain Stone said, his voice echoing off the walls. "We have intelligence that she works at this hospital. We need her immediately. This is a matter of national security." The room went silent. "Who?" Dr. Matthews asked, his voice shaking now. "Who are you looking for?" Captain Stone looked at the paper, then back at the room. "Her name is Emma Carson. But in the Corps, she was known as Angel 6. A collective gasp went through the room. Heads turned slowly, eyes shifting toward the back of the nurses' station. Toward the break room door. Dr. Matthews looked confused. "Carson. The cleaning nurse." He let out a breathless laugh. "You're joking. You landed 4 helicopters for the woman who changes bedpans?" Captain Stone's eyes narrowed. He took a step toward Dr. Matthews and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Watch your tone, civilian," Stone said quietly. "You're speaking about a recipient of the Navy Cross." The silence that followed was absolute. Emma stood in the doorway of the break room. She had heard everything. Her heart was hammering against her ribs. She hadn't heard that call sign in years. Angel 6. She smoothed down her scrubs. She took a deep breath. She didn't want this. She had spent 7 years hiding from this. But she knew that look on Captain Stone's face. She knew that stance. They weren't here for a social visit. Someone was in bad trouble. Emma pushed the door open. The squeak of the hinge sounded like a gunshot in the quiet room. "I'm here," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Every head turned. Dr. Matthews looked at her, his mouth hanging open. The young intern stared from the Marines to Emma and back again. Captain Stone turned. When he saw her, the hard lines of his face softened for just a fraction of a second. He saw the gray in her hair. The tired lines around her eyes, the way she leaned on her right leg. But he didn't see a broken old nurse. He snapped to attention. His boots slammed together with a crack that made the nurse at the desk jump. He brought his hand up in a sharp salute. "Ma'am," Captain Stone said, his voice filled with respect. "Captain Stone, 1st Recon Battalion. We require your assistance. We have a critical situation in the field. The flight surgeon is down. We have a mass casualty event with a special operations unit 30 miles north. They're trapped in a ravine. We can't land a regular medevac, but we can hover a bird. We need a flight nurse who is combat certified for high-angle rescue." He lowered his hand. "We checked the database. You're the only one in the area with the rating." Emma stared at him. "Captain, I haven't flown in 7 years. My leg." "We don't need your legs, ma'am," Captain Stone said intensely. "We need your hands. And we need your brain. There are 8 Marines bleeding out on a mountain right now. One of them is the general's son." He paused. "They specifically asked for you." "Asked for me?" Emma whispered. "The trapped unit," Captain Stone corrected himself. "They won't let anyone else touch them. They radioed that they need Angel 6. They said you served with their commander in Iraq." Emma's breath caught. "Iraq. Is it Commander Richards?" Captain Stone nodded grimly. "It is. And he's critical." Emma didn't hesitate anymore. The slow nurse evaporated. The woman who apologized for existing was gone. In her place stood Angel 6. She looked at Captain Stone. "My medical kit is at my apartment." "We have a full trauma kit on the bird," Stone said. "We leave in 2 minutes." Emma nodded. She took a step forward, her limp obvious, but her movement was now purposeful. "Carson!" Dr. Matthews shouted, finding his voice. "You can't leave. You're on shift. If you walk out those doors, you're fired. Do you hear me? Fired." Emma stopped. She turned slowly to face Dr. Matthews. She looked at the man who had treated her like dirt for 2 years. The man who had mocked her pain and ignored her skills. She walked up to him. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her hospital ID badge, and dropped it into the pocket of his white coat. "Dr. Matthews," she said, her voice now cool and commanding. "That boy in Bay 1 has a tension pneumothorax. A collapsed lung. Needle decompress him right now or you'll be explaining to his senator father why he died." She paused. "And as for firing me?" She smiled. A cold, sharp smile. "I resign." She turned to Captain Stone. "Let's go." The inside of the Black Hawk helicopter was an assault on the senses. Noise, vibration, the overwhelming smell of jet fuel. A smell that acted like a time machine for Emma. The moment the side doors slid shut and the bird banked hard to the left, leaving Seattle behind, the hospital ceased to exist. Dr. Matthews, the rude interns, the gray floors. They were a lifetime away. Captain Stone handed Emma a headset. She pulled it over her ears. The noise cancellation instantly quieted the roar of the rotors to a low hum. He pointed to a bag secured to the floor near her feet. "We brought your old gear," Stone said through the intercom. "Standard issue flight suit, boots, and a trauma bag. Commander Richards kept it. He said you'd come back one day." Emma looked at the bag. A lump formed in her throat. Commander Richards, the man currently bleeding out on a mountain, had kept her gear for 7 years. She unbuckled her seatbelt and began to take off her hospital scrubs. She didn't care about changing in front of the Marines. To them, she was just another piece of essential equipment. Like a rifle or a radio. She pulled on the flight suit. It was a little loose. She had lost muscle since her discharge. But the familiar weight of it felt like armor. She laced up the boots, wincing as she tightened the right one over the scar tissue on her ankle. The pain was sharp, but she shoved it into a mental box and locked it. Situation report, Captain, Emma said, plugging her communication system into the wall jack. Her voice had changed. The quiet, apologetic tone of Nurse Carson was gone. This was Lieutenant Commander Carson speaking. Captain Stone nodded. He pulled out a tablet and passed it to her. Training exercise in the North Cascades, Stone explained, his face grim. First recon unit doing high-altitude survival training. But something went wrong. We lost communication with them 4 hours ago. When we finally got through, the radio operator was frantic. They took fire. Emma looked up from the map on the tablet. Fire, during a training exercise? That's the problem, Stone said darkly. They stumbled onto something they weren't supposed to see. Drug operation, maybe worse. We don't have eyes on the hostiles, but they're heavily armed. They shot down the extraction bird. An osprey went down hard in a box canyon called Devil's Throat. The terrain is too steep for us to land. We have to hover and lower you down on a cable. Emma studied the map. The terrain lines were stacked on top of each other. It was a vertical nightmare. Casualties? She asked. 8 confirmed on the ground. 4 critical. Commander Richards took a round to the abdomen and has shrapnel in his neck from the crash. The corpsman is dead. Richards is the ranking officer, but he's unconscious. The one calling the shots right now is a lance corporal named Miller. He's General Miller's son. Stone paused. The kid is green. He's 19 and he's panicking. He's screaming for Angel 6 because his father told him stories about you. Emma closed her eyes for a second. The general's son. That explained the 4 helicopters. Politics always mixed with warfare. But Richards was family. How long until we're there? She asked. 6 minutes, the pilot's voice cut in. Weather is getting bad. We have a storm moving in from the north. Visibility is dropping fast. If we don't get you down there in the next 10 minutes, we have to abort the mission. Emma looked out the small window. The green suburbs of Seattle had turned into the jagged, snow-covered peaks of the Cascade Mountains. Gray clouds were swirling around the peaks like predators circling prey. She felt the old fear crawling up her stomach. The last time she had been in a helicopter over dangerous terrain, she hadn't walked away. She had crawled. The night was hot, smelling of smoke and death. The RPG had come out of nowhere, hitting the tail rotor. The spin had been sickening. The impact had shattered her world and her leg. She remembered hanging upside down, blood rushing to her head, watching Richards drag the pilot out of the burning wreck. He had come back for her. He had carried her 2 miles on a broken back. He had saved her life. Ma'am. Captain Stone's voice snapped her back to the present. Emma looked at him. Her hands were shaking slightly. She clenched them into fists. I'm good, she lied. She reached into the bag and pulled out her personal medical kit. Breathing tubes. Combat bandages. Chest seals, morphine. She rolled up the sleeve of her flight suit to check her watch. It revealed a tattoo on her inner forearm. Faded now, but still clear. A pair of wings wrapped around the number 6. Below it, Latin words, Natamias, do not be afraid. Captain Stone saw it. He tapped his own chest. The boys on the ground think you're a myth. The Angel of Baghdad. Richards kept your legend alive. Legends don't stop bleeding, Captain, Emma muttered, checking a bag of medical fluid. Tourniquets do. 2 minutes, the pilot yelled. We're taking small arms fire. Repeat, taking fire. The helicopter lurched violently to the right. A sound like hail on a tin roof erupted along the side. Bullets hitting the armor. Lock and load. Captain Stone screamed, pulling back the charging handle of his rifle. The other Marines in the cabin instantly shifted from calm to deadly. Emma grabbed the overhead strap. The vibration changed. The chopper was slowing down, entering a hover. The door gunner opened fire with the minigun. The sound was deafening, shaking Emma's teeth. "We're over the landing zone," the crew chief shouted, sliding the side door open. Freezing wind and snow blasted into the cabin, instantly sucking out all the warmth. Emma looked down through the swirling snow. She saw the wreckage of the Osprey. A twisted metal skeleton smoking in the ravine. Bullets were flying back and forth between the trees and the crash site. "Too hot to land," the pilot screamed. "We have to fast rope you down. You're going first. If we stay here, we're dead." Emma unclipped her safety belt. She grabbed her medical bag. She limped to the edge of the open door and looked down. It was a 60-foot drop into a war zone. Her bad leg throbbed. Captain Stone grabbed her shoulder harness. "You sure about this, Angel?" Emma looked at the chaos below. She saw a figure waving a light signal. Richards. She pulled her goggles down over her eyes. "Send me," she said. The rope burned through her gloves. The friction created heat that fought against the freezing mountain air. Emma descended fast. Too fast. This kind of descent was designed for young men with healthy knees. Not 42-year-old women with titanium pins holding their leg together. But adrenaline is a powerful painkiller. Emma focused on the ground rushing up to meet her. 30 feet .20.10. She tried to land on her good leg, but the uneven ground had other plans. She hit a patch of loose rocks and collapsed. Her bad leg buckled under the weight of the medical bag. A bolt of white-hot pain shot up her spine, blinding her for a second. She gasped, biting her lips so hard she tasted blood. "Move. You have to move." Bullets pinged off the rocks inches from her head. The shooter in the trees had seen her land. Suppressing fire, a voice screamed from the wreck. 3 Marines popped up from behind the twisted metal and unleashed a wall of bullets toward the trees. It bought Emma 3 seconds. She scrambled on her hands and knees, dragging the heavy medical bag through mud and snow. She dove behind the cover of the Osprey's landing gear. She was instantly surrounded by the smell of burnt fuel and blood. "You made it." A young Marine, his face covered in dirt and camouflage paint, grabbed her vest and pulled her deeper into cover. He looked barely 20. His eyes were wide with terror. "I'm Corporal Miller," he said. "Dad said you'd come." Emma grabbed his collar, pulling him close to be heard over the gunfire. "Where is Commander Richards?" "Take me to him. Now." "He's in the fuselage," Miller said. "He's bad, ma'am. Really bad." Miller led her deeper into the broken aircraft. The inside was a nightmare. Red emergency lights flickered, casting shadows over everything. 4 Marines were in defensive positions at the openings. In the center, lying on a thermal blanket, was Commander David Richards. Emma dropped to her knees beside him. He looked older than she remembered. His hair was silver. His face was gray, the color of ash. A bandage was pressed against his neck, soaked through with bright red blood. Another bandage was wrapped around his stomach. "Dave," Emma whispered, her hands already moving. She snapped on blue gloves. Richard's eyes opened. They were hazy, unfocused. He blinked, trying to clear the fog. When he saw her, a weak smile touched his lips. "Emma," he rasped. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. "You ignored my order to stay retired." "I was never good at following orders," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. She peeled back the neck bandage. A jagged cut, missing the main artery by millimeters, but hitting the vein. He was losing blood fast. But it was controllable. The stomach wound was the real killer. "Miller, put pressure here," Emma ordered, guiding the young corporal's hands to the neck wound. "Don't let up. If he bleeds out, it's on you. She cut open Richard's shirt. A single bullet entry wound just below the ribs. No exit wound. That meant the bullet was inside, tearing through organs. His stomach was swollen. Internal bleeding. Pressure is 70/40, a nearby Marine with a bandaged arm said, reading a monitor. He's crashing, ma'am. I need fluids, Emma ordered. Start a line. 18 gauge. Wide open. Suddenly, the hull of the Osprey rang like a bell. Clang. An RPG had hit the nose of the aircraft just 10 feet away. Dust and debris rained down on them. They're flanking us. Miller screamed, taking his hand off Richard's neck to grab his rifle. They're coming down the ridge. Keep your hand on that wound, Miller. Emma roared, shoving him back down. Let the Marines handle the shooting. Your job is to keep pressure. Do not move. Richards grabbed Emma's wrist. His grip was surprisingly strong for a dying man. Emma, he wheezed. Listen. The laptop in the cockpit. You have to destroy it. Not now, Dave, she said, injecting morphine into his foreline. No. He tried to sit up, groaning in pain. It's not drug runners. It's mercenaries. Black Ops. They want the hard drive. It has coordinates for a weapons prototype. Emma froze for a second. The training exercise story was falling apart. If they get it, Richards coughed violently, they'll kill everyone to cover it up. You have to save the boy. Miller. Get him out. Leave me. I'm not leaving you, Emma said, her voice fierce. She leaned close to his ear. I resigned from a hospital job to be here. I'm not going back empty-handed. You're going to live, Dave. Even if I have to carry you out myself. Incoming, someone shouted. The world exploded. A mortar round landed just outside the open hatch. The blast wave picked Emma up and threw her against the wall. Her head slammed into the metal. Her vision went black for a second. She shook her head, fighting the ringing in her ears. She looked up. Miller was on the ground, dazed. Richards was unconscious. And standing at the opening in the hull, outlined by snow and gunfire, were three figures. They weren't wearing the clothes of criminals. They were wearing professional tactical gear. Night vision goggles. Carrying silenced weapons. Mercenaries, professionals. One of them raised his weapon, aiming directly at the unconscious general's son. Emma didn't think. The muscle memory of 1,000 drills kicked in. She was unarmed. Her medical status protected her in theory, but these men didn't care about the Geneva Convention. She grabbed the only thing within reach. A flare gun from the emergency kit strapped to the wall. She raised it and pulled the trigger. The flare hit the lead mercenary square in the chest. It didn't go through the armor, but the phosphorus ignited. Burning at 3,000 degrees. The man screamed, dropping his weapon, thrashing as fire covered his vest. The other two mercenaries flinched, blinded by the sudden bright light in their night vision. Clear the door. Emma screamed. Captain Stone dropped from the ceiling hatch, coming down on a rope. He landed on the second mercenary, his knife flashing. The rescue team had arrived. But Richards was dying. I need light. Emma yelled. Someone give me light. The firefight had pushed outside. Stone and his team were pushing the mercenaries back up the ridge, buying her time. But inside the wreck, the war was medical. Richard's heart had stopped. Starting compressions. Miller yelled, finally finding his courage. He began pumping Richard's chest. Too fast. Slow down. Emma corrected him. Let the chest come back up between pumps. She scrambled to her bag. She needed to open his chest. Stop the bleeding long enough to get him to a hospital. But doing that here, in a frozen, dirty helicopter wreck, was insanity. He's dead if you don't, her inner voice whispered. Get me the scalpel, Emma ordered the Marine with the injured arm. And the antiseptic. Pour it everywhere. She ripped the rest of Richard's shirt open. What are you doing? Miller asked, breathless from the CPR. I'm going to clamp his aorta, Emma said calmly. Stop compressions. He has no pulse. I know. That's why I'm opening his chest. She made the cut. A long vertical line down the center of his chest. Blood didn't flow. His pressure was 0. She used a rib spreader to open the chest. The sound of bone cracking made Miller gag, but he held the flashlight steady. Emma reached into the chest cavity of the man she had loved like a brother for 20 years. Her hands were warm inside his body, a stark contrast to the freezing wind howling outside. She found the main artery. She clamped it with her fingers, pressing it against the spine. Epinephrine. 1 milligram, she shouted. The Marine with the injured arm gave the injection. Emma squeezed Richard's heart manually. Once, twice, 0.3 times. It felt still. Limp. Come on, Dave, she hissed. Don't you die on me. Not here. Not in the snow. She squeezed again. Thump. A weak flutter against her palm. I got a rhythm, she yelled. Come on. Thump. Thump. The heart began to beat on its own. Weak, irregular, but beating. By clamping the artery, she had sent all the remaining blood to his brain and heart. Pulse is back, the Marine shouted. Weak but there. We have to move him, Emma said, pulling her hand out but keeping the clamp in place with surgical forceps. Now. If we wait, he dies from the cold. She pressed her headset. Stone, status. Hostiles are pulling back, but they're getting ready for another attack, Stone's voice was breathless. We have a 3-minute window before they bring up heavy weapons. Is Richards ready to move? Critical but stable, Emma replied. We need extraction now. The weather is 0 visibility, Angel, the pilot cut in. I can't see the ground. Follow my voice. Emma yelled. I'm popping green smoke. She grabbed a smoke canister and threw it out the back. Thick green smoke poured out, whipped away by the wind but visible enough. The roar of the Black Hawk increased. The wind from the rotors nearly knocked them over. The rescue basket was lowered. Get him in. Emma ordered. They loaded Richards into the basket. It was desperate, clumsy work. Emma ran alongside, checking the clamp sticking out of his chest. As the basket lifted off the ground, a bullet hit the metal rail. Go, go, go. Stone screamed, firing his weapon. Emma hooked her own safety clip to the cable above the basket. She wasn't going to ride up separately. She needed to watch Richards every second. They lifted off the ground, swinging wildly in the wind. Emma wrapped her legs around the basket, shielding Richard's open chest with her own body. Below them, the ravine was a light show of gunfire. Above them, the dark belly of the helicopter promised safety. But halfway up, 50 feet in the air, the cable stopped moving. They were stuck. Hanging in the void. Jammed, the crew chief screamed. Hydraulic failure. I can't pull you up. Emma looked down. The mercenaries were coming out of the trees. Looking up. They were easy targets. Manual crank, the pilot screamed. Use the manual crank. It'll take 4 minutes, the chief yelled back. We don't have 4 minutes. Stone's voice cut in from the ground. They're setting up an RPG. You're the target. Emma looked at Richards. His eyes were open again. Looking at her. Cut the line, he whispered. Save yourself. Emma looked at the cable. She looked at the crew chief frantically cranking a lever above. She looked down at the men aiming the rocket launcher. She reached into her vest and pulled out her sidearm. A standard-issue pistol she'd been given on the helicopter. She wasn't going to cut the line. She aimed down at the dark shape of the RPG gunner 50 feet below. She took a deep breath, timing the swing of the cable. Natimias. Do not be afraid. She fired. The recoil of the pistol kicked against Emma's palm. 50 feet below, the mercenary with the RPG crumpled into the snow. The rocket launched harmlessly into the sky, exploding against the canyon wall. Clear. We are clear. Emma screamed into her headset. The manual winch groaned. A terrible metal-on-metal sound that vibrated down the cable. Inch by inch, the basket rose. Emma kept her legs wrapped tightly around it, her body acting as a shield. Her eyes never left Richard's chest. The clamp was slipping. The vibration was shaking it loose. If it came off, Richards would bleed out in seconds. Steady. Emma yelled as her head cleared the floor of the Black Hawk. Don't jerk it. Strong hands grabbed her vest. Captain Stone and the crew chief pulled the basket into the cabin with one massive heave. They slid the basket across the floor, securing it instantly. Pilot, get us out of here. Stone roared. Stay low. The Black Hawk banked violently, diving over the ridgeline to escape. The force pressed Emma into the floor, but she didn't let go of the clamp. I need light, she barked. He's going into irregular rhythm again. The cabin was bathed in red tactical lights. It was a nightmare operating room. The helicopter was shaking. The air pressure was changing. And the patient was technically dead, kept alive only by a piece of steel pinching his main artery. Corporal Miller was huddled in the corner, staring at Emma with wide eyes. He had just watched a middle-aged nurse with a limp rappel down a rope, perform open-heart surgery in a wreck, and shoot a man from a hanging cable. Is he going to make it? Miller stammered. Hold this bag, Emma ordered, ignoring the question. Squeeze it every time I nod. Understand? Yes, ma'am. Emma looked at the monitor. Richard's vitals were all over the place. She needed to stabilize the clamp and pack the chest wound. Stone, get me on communications with the hospital, Emma said, her hands deep in the chest cavity, adjusting the packing material. We can't go to the base. He won't survive the flight to the military hospital. We have to go back to Seattle General. Negative, Angel, Stone said, listening to his earpiece. Command says Richards is too sensitive. The laptop, the classified data. We can't bring that into civilian territory. Emma looked up. Her face was covered in dirt and blood. Her eyes were furious. I don't care about the laptop, Captain. I care about the man who saved my life in Iraq. He has a clamped aorta and a collapsed lung. Seattle General is 6 minutes out. The military hospital is 20. If we fly to the base, you'll be landing with a body. Do you want to explain to General Miller why his son's commander died because of protocol? Stone hesitated. He looked at Richards. Then at Emma. He saw the fire in her eyes. The same fire that had earned her the Navy Cross. He pressed his radio. Command, this is Eagle 1. We are declaring a medical emergency. Diverting to Seattle General. Pilot, full speed, Stone ordered. Copy that, the pilot responded. The engines whined as he pushed them to maximum. Emma focused back on the wound. Stay with me, Dave. We're almost home. The flight was a blur of alarms and desperate work. Twice Richard's pressure dropped to nothing. Twice Emma had to manually pump his heart with her hand while the Marines watched in silent awe. As the Seattle skyline came into view, the hospital roof was already lit up. But as they got closer, Emma saw something that made her blood boil. The landing pad was empty. No medical team. Security guards were blocking the doors. They aren't ready for us, Emma realized. Dr. Matthews blocked the landing. He what? Stone growled. Dr. Matthews. He's the trauma chief. He probably thinks this is me causing drama. Stone checked his rifle. Set it down, pilot. If anyone gets in her way, I'll move them. The Black Hawk came down over the hospital roof. The wind kicked up debris. The wheels slammed onto the painted H. Before the rotors even slowed, Stone kicked the door open. He jumped out, his weapon ready. His team spread out to secure the area. The hospital security guards who had been ordered to block access took one look at the Force Recon Marines and backed away with their hands up. Emma unbuckled. She grabbed the gurney. Let's move. On my count. 1, 2, 3. They rushed Richards out of the chopper. The wind was howling. Emma limped heavily, her bad leg screaming, but she didn't slow down. She ran alongside the gurney, her hand still holding the clamp inside Richards' chest. They burst through the roof door and into the elevator. Trauma Bay 1, Emma ordered. And someone paged Dr. Matthews. Tell him if he isn't there in 30 seconds, I'm doing the surgery myself. The elevator doors opened on the ER floor. The scene was complete confusion. The staff had heard the helicopter but nobody knew what was happening. When Emma burst out, flanked by 4 heavily armed Marines, pushing a gurney with a man whose chest was literally open, the entire floor froze. Dr. Matthews was standing at the nurse's station with a coffee, laughing with a resident. He turned and the smile died on his face. He saw Emma. But it wasn't the Emma he knew. She was wearing a flight suit covered in mud and blood. Her hair was wild. She moved with terrifying intensity. The limp in her walk now looked like the stride of a wounded warrior, not a weakness. Get out of my way. Emma shouted, her voice echoing down the hall. Carson. Dr. Matthews sputtered, dropping his coffee. It shattered, splashing on his white shoes. What is the meaning of this? You resigned. You can't just. Patient is male, 52, gunshot wound to abdomen, penetrating neck trauma, emergency chest surgery performed in the field. Emma rattled off the report like machine gun fire as she rolled past him. Aorta is clamped. I need the operating room prepped now. Type and cross-match for 10 units of blood. Get the vascular team. She didn't stop to ask permission. She didn't look back. She drove the gurney straight into Trauma Bay 1. Dr. Matthews ran after them, his face red. Security. Stop her. She's practicing medicine without a license. She's just a nurse. He reached out to grab Emma's arm. Before his fingers could touch her, Captain Stone stepped in. The giant Marine didn't shout. He simply placed a hand on Dr. Matthews' chest and shoved him back against the wall hard enough to knock the wind out of him. Touch her again, Stone said, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl, and you will need a trauma surgeon yourself. This is my hospital. Dr. Matthews wheezed. And that is my commanding officer on that table, Stone replied. She is the only reason he's still breathing. You will take orders from her or you will stand down. Dr. Matthews looked around. The entire ER staff, Lisa, the interns, the nurses, the orderlies, were watching. They weren't looking at Dr. Matthews with their usual fear or respect. They were looking at Emma. The woman they had ignored for years, now commanding a room full of elite soldiers. Dr. Matthews, Emma said, not looking up as she connected Richards to the hospital monitors. I need a vascular surgeon to repair the aorta. Are you going to scrub in, or do I need to call someone competent? The insult hung in the air, sharp and brutal. Dr. Matthews swallowed his pride. He saw the open chest. He saw the clamp. He realized with sinking horror the level of skill it took to do that procedure in a hovering helicopter. He looked at Emma's hands. They were steady as rock. "I'll scrub in," Dr. Matthews muttered. "Good," Emma said. "But I'm lead on this. You repair the vessel. I manage the patient." "Clear. That's highly irregular. Do it." The next 4 hours were a blur. Emma didn't leave the operating room. She stood at the head of the table, monitoring everything, calling for blood products, guiding Dr. Matthews' hands when his ego made him sloppy. For the first time in his career, Dr. Matthews was the assistant. When the final stitch was placed and Richards was moved to intensive care, stable, Emma finally stepped back. She peeled off the bloody gloves. Her adrenaline crashed. Her leg gave out. She stumbled, but she didn't hit the floor. Captain Stone caught her. "I got you, Angel," he said softly. They walked her out of the operating room and into the waiting area. The room was full. Not with patients, but with uniforms. General Miller, the father of the boy Emma had saved, was there. He was a terrifying man with 4 stars on his shoulder. Beside him stood the hospital director and the board members. When Emma entered, leaning on Stone, the room went silent. General Miller walked up to her. He looked at his son, Corporal Miller, who was sitting in a wheelchair with a blanket around him. The boy nodded to his father, tears in his eyes. The general turned to Emma. He didn't offer a handshake. He saluted. It was slow. Deliberate. Behind him, 20 other Marines in the room snapped to attention. "Lieutenant Commander Carson," the general said, his voice thick with emotion. "My son tells me you walked into hell to bring them back." "Just doing the job, sir," Emma said quietly. "No," the general said. "You did more than the job. You saved 8 Marines. You secured classified intelligence that will save thousands more. And you did it while this," he gestured dismissively at the hospital administrators, "while this institution treated you like a janitor." He turned to the hospital director, a sweating man in a suit. "Did you know you had a Navy Cross recipient scrubbing your floors?" The director stammered. Personnel files are confidential." "She is a hero," the general barked. "And as of this moment, she is reactivated. The Navy wants her back. The Corps wants her back. She will not be changing bedpans for you anymore." He turned back to Emma. "If you want it, the position of Chief Instructor at the Joint Special Operations Medical Training Center is yours. Full colonel rank." Emma looked at the general. Then she looked across the room. Dr. Matthews was standing there. He looked small. Defeated. He had watched everything. He realized that the woman he had bullied, the woman he had called slow, was a legend he had failed to recognize. Emma let go of Stone's arm. She stood on her own 2 feet, wincing at the pain, but standing tall. She looked at Dr. Matthews. She didn't gloat. She didn't yell. She just offered him a small, pitying smile. "I think I'll take that offer, General," Emma said. "But first, I have one thing to finish." She walked over to the nurse's station where her old locker key was still in her pocket. She pulled it out and placed it on the counter. Lisa, the young nurse who had always been kind to her, was crying happy tears. "Goodbye, Lisa," Emma said softly. "Don't let them push you around." She turned and walked toward the exit, flanked by the general and Captain Stone. The automatic doors slid open, letting in the cool night air. The sound of the Black Hawk on the roof was gone, but the silence she left behind was louder than any engine. The quiet nurse was gone. Angel 6 had returned. And as she walked into the night, for the first time in 7 years, she didn't feel the pain in her leg. She only felt the wind beneath her wings. The legend of Angel 6 didn't end that night. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. Commander Richards made a full recovery. He eventually retired to a cabin near the training center where Emma taught the next generation of combat medics. Dr. Matthews resigned a month later. His reputation was destroyed. He couldn't command respect in an ER that knew he had bullied a hero. Corporal Miller became one of Emma's best students. He told everyone who would listen about the day Angel 6 saved his life. Emma proved that heroes don't always wear capes. And they don't always run. Sometimes they limp. But when the call comes, when the sky opens and the helicopters arrive, they fly. She was no longer defined by her injury, but by the lives she refused to let slip away. In the end, the scars we carry are not signs of weakness. They are proof that we survived. That we fought. That we saved others.